Thank you, viewers, for being with us. This is Daybreak on Trust Television. My name is Abdulaziz. It is a beautiful morning, and thanks for staying with us.
And I'm Dashan Husseina Usman. Thank you so much for staying. With that, we'll move on to the headlines.
Airline operators bow to pressure, cancel nationwide shutdown.
Buhari leaves Abuja for Abidjan for UN conference.
Senator Arthur Nzerebe dies at 83.
And with that, we'll take details of the stories. The airline operators of Nigeria have suspended the decision to cripple the aviation sector today. President of the AON, Alhaji Abdulmanaf Yunus Asarina, who announced this on Sunday, said the decision was taken after deliberations with the federal government. The development comes after no fewer than 6 airlines backed out of the planned shutdown. The airlines, which pulled out of the earlier joint decision to suspend operations over skyrocketing Jet A1, include Ibom Air, Dana, Arik, Aero, Overland, and Green Africa Airways. Out of the 6, only Green Africa is not a member of the AON.
President Muhammadu Buhari on Sunday left Abuja to Abidjan for Côte d'Ivoire to attend United Nations organized conference. The conference will pay priority attention to the future of land regarding desertification, drought, degradation, rights restoration, and immigrations for national and world economies. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, explained that the convention aims to take action to ensure that land continues to benefit present and future generations. President Buhari is expected to participate in a summit of heads of states and governments from the 9th to 10th of May 2020 and join world leaders for the 15th session of the Conference of State Parties, COP15, of the United Nations Convention to combat desertification with the theme Land, Life, Legacy, from Scarcity to Prosperity.
All right, finally, maverick politician and former Senator Arthur Nzeribe is dead. A statement signed by 3 members of his family on behalf of the Nzeribe confirmed the death of the octogenarian. Nzeribe, a multi-billionaire investment mogul, was born in Oguta, Imo State on 2nd November 1938 to a lawyer father, Oyimba Nzeribe. His second wife is the sister of Hajia Sebeyer Adua, wife of the late General Shehu Musa Yer Adua, who was brother of President Umaru Yer Adua. Nzeribe was famous for the formation of the famous Association for a Better Nigeria, ABN, which backed General Ibrahim Babangida in Scotland the worldwide acknowledged June 12 elections that would have brought in the billionaire Chief MK Abiola as the popularly elected president. His family said burial arrangements would be announced in due course. And with that, we wrap up the highlights. The news highlights at this hour.
Thank you very much, Husseina. And I think with that, we move on to having a guest in the studio, which will discuss some of the important issues in the polity. Political appointees seeking various office are expected to resign from the current position in line with the new Electoral Act amendment bill signed by the President. There have been warnings from different quarters that political appointees who refuse to resign before contesting the forthcoming 2023 elections pose a risk to themselves and their political parties. Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act 2022, which was signed by the President, provided that no political appointee at any level shall be a voting delegate or be voted for at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election. A lawyer, Sam Kabo, joins us now in the studio to help us understand the implications of this section vis-a-vis the continuous remaining in office by some of these politicians holding public offices. Good morning, Mr. Sam, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You have heard me, and especially reading the Section 84, and also what is happening in the polity. What do you make of this sort of quagmire in which the politicians are still staying put while the political, I mean, the congresses are open as already?
Well, I would not see it as a quagmire. It's a choice. And for every decision we make in life, we should be ready for the consequences. For now, the matter is in court, so we would have to be very tentative about it. But talking as a lawyer, let me just give you the background. The National Assembly has the constitutional power, both under Section 4 of the Constitution, to make laws concerning elections, because election is under the exclusive list, and the Constitution specifically gives the National Assembly the power to make laws concerning the regulation of elections. And that is why it is they who made the Electoral Act, and it is also they who make the rules concerning the proceedings in election tribunals. It is also their own constitutional power to regulate the affairs of political parties. And if they've made a law in itself that tends to regulate primaries, and primaries is also part of the election, because election is not just an event, it's a process that will start from even the pre-election stage up to the election and after the elections. All of those stages is for the National Assembly to make the laws specifically. And before the introduction of the provision you just quoted, 8412, there had been some amendments that speak specifically, that is Section 285 of the Constitution, that speaks loudly about the powers of the National Assembly to regulate primaries. It's mentioned there not once, not twice, but 3 times, specifically mentioning the power of the National Assembly to regulate elections. But there is also another view, and the view is that the Constitution has spoken about who to resign before participating in the election, and the number of days that the person needs to resign before participating. So that view is saying that if the Constitution has spoken to that, you shouldn't add to it. It's neither here nor there, because ours is just to pontificate like we are doing. It is for the courts to do the interpretation, because that is the job of the court. The National Assembly has done its job. It is for the court to do the interpretation. But coming back to the specific question, the risks are here. I don't see the candidates having a risk, because if for anything, it's just for him to lose the election. But it's for the political parties that are playing what I would call the Russian roulette here, because it's a risk. What if at the end of the day, that provision is upheld by the Supreme Court? If it does, then any candidate who runs foul of that is disqualified. And disqualification is not something that you say, oh, it's time-bound. No, if you are disqualified, you are disqualified. And no matter how beautiful your return is, even if at the end of the day you have 100% of the votes, you are disqualified. On the day of the election, you were not qualified to participate in that election. So the party loses, that's it. We've had that in a number of occasions. You know, Sanfara is very close to us here. And for the APC, I think they have a lesson to learn. Almost all of the parties must have learned from that. For candidates or for people aspiring to contest the election, if they still stick to their guns by staying in office, the question now arises, what is the control or what is the level of control that the political party has over its own affairs, because I would think that the party would by itself have its own nomination guidelines, and those guidelines are also legal and are binding on all the members. If the party makes its own guidelines regarding those who are to participate in the election, what they are supposed to do, they will do their own screening. And at the end of the day, those they feel do not fall within their own parameters of those that they can give their ticket to, they can screen that person out to say, oh, yeah, we do not think that you meet our own guidelines. The guidelines specifically state that before you participate in this primary, you must have resigned by this number of days. So it has to do with the first is the duty of the political party to put their houses in order and be sure that they have control over their own affairs, because they will not have anybody to blame at the end of the day.
Now, can you, shed more light on this? Because some people are actually saying that, political appointees in the Electoral Act are different from the public officers mentioned in the Constitution.
Definitely, the public officers are not, political appointees are not public officers. Public officers are specifically stated and they are guided by their own rules. Political appointees are what I would call personal appointees to the appointer, and they are not in any way bound by any of the rules that are made for the public officers.
Okay, so these ministers that, are expected to resign, are they political appointees or public officers?
The ministers are, to me, political appointees, because they are there at the mercy of the appointer, not by any other consideration. They are not part of the public service. The public service is distinct. The public service is not even supposed to be a political service. It's more or less an offshoot of the civil service. And these are people who have agencies that they are running, and they are specifically mentioned in the Constitution, and they are given constitutional rules. The only minister that the Constitution speaks to is the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. But even after that, is still a political appointee. But this is not to say that I'm given a very authoritative answer as to whether or not their refusal to resign is right or wrong. Like I said, that is for the court to see.
But, some would actually argue that since they're paid with public funds, it makes them public officers.
No, you see, the Constitution gives the executive arm a very large latitude to say they give the executive elected persons, for an example, the governor of a state. The Constitution gives him the open-ended check to conduct the executive affairs of the state. And in order to do that, he would need hands through which he would do that job. The same with the president. The president has the overall executive powers of the state, and he acts through his own appointees, and that is why he has the absolute discretion to appoint a minister for beautiful women. He can. You would cry to say, oh, you are wasting public funds, but you cannot say he has gone overboard because it's a discretion. The only provision that he has to be guided by is that while making those appointments, you should make sure that you meet the federal character to ensure that at least every state in the federation is included in your cabinet. But You can, it's your right to appoint a minister for toothpick. That is your own discretion.
Okay.
So, Mr. Kagbo, let's go back to some foundational issues.
Yes.
First is the issue of the propriety of going to challenge a legislation in court. Some said that some say that it amounts to infringing on the duties and responsibilities, constitutional responsibilities of the National Assembly to make laws.
No.
What is your own?
No. You see, the fact that the Constitution gives the National Assembly the power to make laws does not mean that somebody cannot challenge. In any case, that's the way it works. Once you make your law, anybody who is affected, any individual, even if it is Mr. President, he can go to court to challenge it because it affects him. And therefore, the political appointees who are affected by that provisions have the right to go to court to challenge it. Not just the political appointees, anybody there who is directly related to that provision can go to court. And it is for the court to now look at it against the overall provisions of the Constitution to see whether or not the National Assembly has gone overboard. And if it does, they'll strike it out.
Okay, the second issue is that one of the argument by the promoters of this court case against the Section 84(12) of the Electoral Act is that the section actually infringes on the constitutional rights of the persons affected. That since the Constitution has given them a mandate, and then you can just come and take it away or to deprive them of that liberty to join whatever they want to join, maybe a political organization or association. What is your take on that?
That's another view. That's another view, but political appointments are a privilege as against your right to vote and be voted for. But it's your choice. What they are saying is that for the good conduct of the primaries and for the good conduct of the election, we want to be sure that anybody who wants to participate should have left political office and concentrate on his own political adventure. Let me give you my own personal view to that. Even before that provision, I've always faulted the idea of political appointees and political office holders, with the exception of the executives, the core executives, that is the governors, the president, and the legislators. Those ones are what I would call professional politicians. But you are presiding over a vote. Year in, year out, there are budgets, and you are supposed to what? Preside over that vote. And presiding over that vote means that there is a job to be done. And that job is a 24-hour job. If you now divide your attention with your own private aspirations, who loses? Not you, but the state. Because what? You are, like you said, they've been paid, you made that point, with public funds. They're public property. You are presiding over the destiny of the state. And you now neglect that for your own private adventure or for your own private aspirations or for your own private ambition. You have every constitutional right to pursue your own private interest, but not while holding the public office.
Okay. Now, can you share thoughts on, a serving CBN governor, going into partisan politics?
I wish you did not ask me that question, because to me, that is traumatic. Because the question I'm asking is that, where have we really gone wrong, so much so that people could have that audacity and that effrontery to just do. I am not saying he has no right to contest the elections, but the office where he is an office that forbids him from being an active politician. He is not supposed to be a member of any political party. That's the most sensitive economic office of the land. You're presiding over that, and you're picking a form of a political party that you want to contest under that political
Well,
party.
Mr. Emefiele actually denied that he picked the forms. He's saying that those who...
I wish he's right that he is not interested.
Well, he's not that categorical about his interest, because he's saying that when he decides, he will pick the forms himself, that those who pick these forms...
I wish for
But
his...
then
Yes.
the APC chairman has confirmed that he has been a member of the party since at least... No, that he is a member of APC since at least February 2021. What do you make of the... And legally speaking, what does that imply? What is the import of that?
He has violated the office of the governor of the central bank. He is supposed to be apolitical. What that means, nobody is saying you should not be a politician, but you cannot be categorically be identified with a political party. To the point, mind you, you cannot be an idle bystander of a political party and yet pick up the phone. You must have been a very active member of that political party for you to be considered and for you to even make that decision to pick the phone. What that one means that all along, now he has removed the facade, the veil. We've seen him for who he is. All along, he's been what? An APC active member. I have my own identification with APC. But that does not, I'm a private person. I can do that. I can go to town celebrating APC, but he cannot. Because what one also means is that all the policies he's been taken were not policies meant for the overall interest of the nation, but for his own political ambition. Because he's going to town to campaign with his policies. Oh, it's been this what I've done with agriculture, but what about all the other areas of the economy? You're presiding over the naira that is tumbling by the hour, and yet you have the temerity to pick up a form. I think something is bad.
So what is
something
your
is wrong
under these circumstances? What do you think should be done?
He should resign. That is what any, I don't want to use the word, but that's what any decent person can do. The least you can do, you just resign and let somebody who will be hands-on takes over that office. You cannot leave that office and start campaigning. For God's sake. It's like somebody leaving you in the middle of the sea and jumping afloat with another ship and leaving you there and say, oh, he wants to go and get gold for himself. That is what he's doing.
Okay, now talking about resignation, we've actually seen a lot of appointees, you know, in state level, you know, resigning, and, you know, some governors
Just are honorable people.
Some governors dissolving their cabinet as well. Now, people are actually asking, we know this has actually gone to court, and the PDP and, National Assembly has actually filed an appeal, against, the judgments, as the Umahia Court judgment. Now, people are asking if the president is, with these political appointees on them, failing to resign. And, they're also asking if there's anyone or any organization there to actually, enforce the APC directive, because even the APC has actually asked them to resign as well. And, we've not seen that yet. Considering that President Muhammadu Buhari himself had issued such a directive to his political appointees to resign in 2015, we're not seeing that happening right now with the ministers.
It is his game. But Mr. President too has the same view. He also has the same opinion as those who believe that that provision infringes on the fundamental rights of the political appointees. So he may not want to be seen to capitulate to the other opinion. But if you ask me for my own personal view, and like I've said so many times and in many forums, he should ask them to leave, because we have an economy that needs emergency attention, a 24-hour attention. The state where we are, we cannot afford to have part-timers. Go around the ministries, go around the agencies, go around the public institutions. Everything is at a standstill. Because what? All the executives in those places are out there in the field politicking. And who suffers? The nation suffers. So I would think that for the good of Mr. President, because these are his own errand boys, these are people doing his own job. At the end of the day, they said what? He takes the blame. All of those people tomorrow, history is not going to write about any of his ministers. But history is going to zero on him to say, you did this, you did not do this, you failed to do this, and all of that. Why is it that everything that happens, north, west, south, and central, is blame on him? The reason is simple. Like I have said, the Constitution or the country has given him the open ticket to employ whoever he wants to employ to do the job, but let the job be done. Yeah. And if we are having a whole year, because the whole, as time goes by, the activities of the state are going to be depleted, because what? Everybody is out there in the field campaigning.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And talking about this, just before you go, Mr. Kabo, there is the issue of APC issuing some conditions for aspirants, especially presidential aspirants, barring them from going to court, asking them to accept the outcome of the party primaries, not doing parallel congresses, and sign letter of voluntary withdrawal, and preserve the, put the interests of the party ahead of their personal interests. This is being reported in today's, this morning by the Nation newspaper. What do you make of these guidelines? Do you think is healthy, is something that is also legally okay?
The party is not a fiction. The party is about the members of the party. And the members of the party means the individual. You cannot put a gun over their head and you are saying in the interest of the party. Those conditions are themselves anti-party because they are not in the interest of the party. You cannot tell me that I should. You are not appointing me. We had a president who used to do that with his ministers. As he appointing you, he is giving you a letter of resignation, so that the moment you misbehave, they announce your resignation on TV. He has the right to do that, but not a political party, because the individual have the right. You are just an agent of the state for the recruitment of the personnel of the state. Yeah. You cannot tell me that I should withdraw. I should write a letter of withdrawal so that you go and impose a candidate on me. You want to circumvent the provisions of the Electoral Act indirectly.
All right. Well, sadly, we have to wrap up this discussion here. Thank you so much, Barrister Sam Kabo, for joining us on Daybreak today.
Thank you very much.
And
thank you for having me.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll move on to the next discussion.